Welcome, friends, to the Ink to Film podcast, where we read the book and then see the movie. I'm writer Luke Elliott.
And I'm filmmaker James Bailey.
And this week we are off because we are meeting up in Denver with some friends, having a little mini vacation get-together. So we won't be releasing a regular episode, but we are putting out this From the Vault content.
Yeah, and this one is going to be on Cabinet of Curiosities, which if you've been following along, we did an episode on for the main feed, which covered all the adaptations.
Yeah, I think we might have done 2 episodes on it. I have to look back.
But basically, these are going to be the ones that were kind of written specifically for the show. And there were a few that we really liked. So I think this will be fun to kind of fill out that whole Cabinet of Curiosities coverage there.
Yeah, we wanted to, complete it, right? And these were 3 episodes that were not adaptations. So we're a little different than what we had done, but we wanted to compare that and see how those stood up. Because I think we thought it was kind of a mixed bag. There were things we liked, there were other ones we liked less. And again, I think the mixed bag kind of continues here, but you're right. One of my favorite episodes in the entire show is absolutely in this group. So this is a fun one to talk about. Hopefully you enjoy this. A little bit more housekeeping before we unlock this thing. Because we got kind of an odd schedule coming up here. I'm going to Scotland soon, but right before that, we have 1 week where we're going to release the first half of Wool, which if you're like, what the hell's Wool? That's the book that Silo is adapted from, so the Apple TV series Silo, which is one we've been wanting to get to. So we're going to release the first half of the book where we talk about Hugh Howey, talk about the book a little bit, but not finishing it out, so I won't know everything that's going to happen. But then I'm leaving for Scotland. I'm going to Worldcon. I'm going to be on programming there. So if you happen to be at Worldcon, come see me. I don't have my official schedule yet, so I can't say exactly when I'm going to be on things, but I will be announcing that soon. But that means also I won't be around to record that week either. So we're going to do another From the Vault episode. So you can look for that in a few weeks here. But then when we get back, we will complete our Silo coverage by covering the first 5 episodes of Silo, second half of the book, and then the final 5 episodes of the show. So that's our plan for Silo. It's going to kind of be our next big project we're going to try and tackle. All of that leads up to our next quarterly project, which is going to be coming in September. So if you'd like for us to tackle something of your choice, you're going to want to get those suggestions in by the end of August. So end of August, get those suggestions in, and then that'll have a shot at being selected for our next quarterly.
Yeah, I'll be excited to see what the audience decides there. And I'm really looking forward to Silo. I watched the show originally, but I can't wait to dig into the book. I actually met the author at a convention once, so that was really cool. So I have so much that I want to talk about with this project.
And I've never seen it because I held off religiously, even though there was pressure to watch it. I kept hearing good things, but it'll be cool because it'll be my first time with the show. So I'll be able to have that experience. I'm looking forward to it, man. That's one that's been on our list for a little while. But let's go ahead and unlock this thing for them.
Yeah, we hope you enjoy this previous Patreon exclusive. This week, we're going to cover the rest of Cabinet of Curiosities that we didn't cover for the main feed. These are the ones that are not based on source material that we could find, at least. I think some of them say that they may have been adapted from screenplays.
A couple of them said adapted from a short story by Guillermo del Toro, and I'm not sure if he has like a collection that has these stories that you can buy, or I don't know. So yeah, I feel a little silly if that is the case, but whatever. We're covering these episodes now. So let's also describe how we're going to cover this. So we're going to do it in a similar way to how we did in the main feed, in that we're going to devote, I think, about 10 minutes to each of these episodes, just to keep this episode a little shorter. But yeah, I mean, it should be cool. I'm excited to talk about these. When do we start the timer? Do you want to start right away?
Sure, yeah, let's start it right now, and I'll knock out all of this information. So the first episode of the entire series, which we didn't watch up to this point, it's called Lot 36, and it's directed by Guillermo Navarro. Guillermo Navarro, really quick, he's a Mexican filmmaker, and you may know him as the cinematographer of Pan's Labyrinth and Kronos.
I haven't seen Kronos.
And he also has directed quite a few episodes of television and movies himself. But how cool is it that Guillermo del Toro was able to, help his cinematographer also become a director? And he's a director on his own right, but just for him to bring in his friend in this way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Lot 36. Xenophobic right-wing veteran Nick purchases the rights to an abandoned storage room lot. He refuses Mexican immigrant Amelia's pleas to let her recover her familial belongings from her lot, which was mistakenly sold to him cruelly, leaving her nothing but an old broken padlock. He acquires a lot belonging to a deceased old man as well. Desperate for funds, he searches the lot for items to sell until he finds a German seance table and 3 volumes on demon summoning. An interested buyer, Roland, urges him to find the 4th volume, which would be worth 300,000 together. The two search the room, finding a secret passage leading to a chamber which contains a dormant demon summoned and sealed into the desiccated body of the old man's long missing sister, Dottie Woolmore. Spotting the 4th volume and ignoring Roland's warnings of the supernatural, Nick goes to retrieve it but breaks the seal, keeping the demon contained. It emerges as a writhing, tentacled mass and consumes Roland and chases Nick through the dark storage warehouse. Finding a locked door and Amelia outside, he begs for her to open the door, but she locks him in with the padlock, leaving him to try and evade the demon, but he is caught and consumed by it.
Yeah. All right. So I just want to say, like, overall, these 3 episodes, I was really happy that we watched them. I feel like they've left me with like a better taste in my mouth than the Lovecraft adaptations that we didn't love. And this first one is good. I did feel like it was a little frustrating in the sense that it could have been great, and there was just like a few things that were keeping it back. But like the concept of this guy who buys these lots, and the mystery of what's in this lot, and there's like this weird guy who's died and he's left something behind, and he is a Nazi who is now in America, I guess, but he and like there's these ties to the occult, and you have this veteran who is xenophobic and racist, but who like has some things going for him that makes us find him interesting at least. But yeah, again, like all these components are cool, and like the mystery of what's inside this lot was really engaging, and it looked good. So like there was a lot going for it that made it feel like this could be a great episode. I just didn't think it quite landed as great, but I had a good time with it. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree with the statement about all 3 of the episodes as well. I think it rounded out the show in a way that I wanted, sort of some different kind of stories. I felt like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of them were a little samey, and these tended to be a little different, although this is reminiscent of the next episode with the grave robber who needs to get some money. And
that main character who you kind of like know he's gonna get his comeuppance. Like,
exactly.
That becomes what the episode's about. You're like, at some point this guy's gonna die because he's terrible.
I like seeing social issues brought into this kind of stuff, and making it evident, and making those kinds of people maybe question their beliefs if they are watching this kind of stuff, because you are going to get your comeuppance at some point, just as a heads up if you're a xenophobic person like that.
Yeah, this maybe is a weird segue, but like I kind of wanted him to be a little more relatable, if not likable. But like, I feel like they were hinting at like his experiences in the war have left him this way, and he has this injury into one of his ears, and like that's pitiable. And so if I can at least pity the guy, like I can feel a little bit bad for him. But they like repeatedly did enough to like keep it to where I couldn't really feel bad for him. Like he's enough of an asshole.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
I mean, Tim Blake Nelson does a good job of being hateable, like pretty easily in the way that he was portraying the character, and what the character is in general, but like is almost like mustache twirlingly, like almost unrealistically, sort of like I think a lot of people that are like this kind of are in denial that they're like this, and this is a character who seems to be like, no, I'm just a full-on racist, and I hate everybody else, and I'm pretty out about that, and like I don't know, that bums me out, and yeah, maybe some more subtlety would have helped with the pitiable portions like you're talking about, like of course, like anyone who served, that's it can leave a lot of scars like that, and that, like you said, can be traumatic and leave lasting impact, and clearly he's dealing with some of that stuff, but that has nothing to do with him also being racist, like piece of shit,
Well, I mean, like I do think that if you fight in a war in another country, and and like sometimes people they develop resentments towards a race of people, obviously wrong, but it's kind of like a manifestation of the trauma they experience. And so like, I don't know, it's like it at least like explains it in a way. But, you know, we didn't get that enough here.
Well, and the people he's in this, the people that he's racist again aren't the people.
It's just
that,
everybody.
Yeah,
Right. It's not like
it's
a
black
specific
people.
people.
It's Hispanic people.
Well, yeah, and like he's like, oh, what about white people? And like he's got this. Yeah, he's white supremacist basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, there's like a poetic justice to him getting caught up in the like leavings of a Nazi, and it gets him killed. And then, like, obviously this immigrant who he's an asshole to is instrumental in, like, getting him killed by this demon. Yeah, I would have liked to see a little more complexity. A couple things I did really like. So, like, I like the design of the monster here a lot. I thought it looked really cool. Like, the tentacles coming out of the face, and then when it was walking, like, you know, that looked great. I love the, like, tension that the constantly going off lights added, where you had to twist the knob and then it would be ticking. And it added this like ticking clock feel, and also like those lights are like a real thing. I don't know if you've ever been around those. Like they're really weird, and you're like, it's like such a like penny pinching thing of like you know, you can't have power for more than this amount of time unless you twist the knob again. Make sure that you're here when you're doing it. It's funny, but
I did want to go back and agree with you about the concept too, though. Like, remember there was a period of time where everyone was just obsessed, or at least talking a lot about like Storage Wars, and these kinds of shows were really popular. And so to take that idea and be like, all right, but what if something crazy was in one of these? And you know, it's a really cool concept, and I liked it. And then this idea of it, this specific storage facility is like from the 40s, and there's all kinds of crazy tunnels, and the rooms don't match up, and there's weird measurements going on. And I think it's cool.
So a couple of missed opportunities I want to point out. I think having him walk into the room with the body splayed out in this like pentagram, that's a cool scene, good moment. But the face being weirdly hollowed out and us seeing a tentacle squirming in there, when he decides to be like, fuck it, I don't believe in any of this, and walk across the pentagram anyway, it was a little frustrating. Because it's like, that, like, he has evidence. This is such a bizarre scene. To see him do that was a little frustrating. I would have liked it if the body was just a desiccated corpse. Because at the very least, it's still not supernatural to him. So he can be like, I don't believe in any of this. I'm going to walk across it anyway. And then the demon comes out. I don't know. It's just a small thing, but it was a little obvious.
And maybe from the camera's perspective, we saw it. But from his perspective, he couldn't really tell that, because we're sort of looking down into it. But at the same time, like, I understand what you mean. Like, why not surprise the audience and him by having nothing there?
And then the stuff with the immigrant woman, I would have liked for her to understand that she is like getting this guy killed by a demon or something. Like it felt like it was kind of an accident at the end. Like she was just like, haha, you've been locked in here, fuck you.
I don't know. She was kind of lurking. Like she kind of seemed like she knew something was going on.
She was, but like we never got any direct evidence that she knew what was going on, right?
And do we know that she's immigrant, by the way? I thought at one point she said she's from America.
Oh, you're right. She is from America, but he is projecting his hatred of immigrants onto her.
Right.
So that's where I was
And actually, now that I'm looking at it, the summary even says Mexican immigrant as well. So
yeah, so maybe that's why I got it in my head, in my defense. But yeah, I mean, pretty cool episode. That's the timer. So we're going to have to move on. But like, yeah, this was fun. It was like a good way to start off and remind me of like, it does feel like bread and butter. Like this is what Cabinet of Curiosities is like. And it had a lot of the hallmarks of it. And I was like, yeah, okay, back into Cabinet of Curiosities. And then we jump all the way to episode 7. So let's get into that one.
So episode 7 is called The Viewing, and it's directed by Panos Cosmatos. Cosmatos is an Italian-Canadian film director and screenwriter. He's known for Beyond the Black Rainbow and Mandy, which Mandy is incredible. Have you seen or heard of?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of Mandy, yeah. That's the one with
batshit crazy Nick Cage film.
Nick Cage, yeah.
Incredibly well shot, very cool, lots of red used, and just like unhinged Cage.
I've seen the image of him like covered in blood in it and stuff, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I need to watch that movie.
Great movie, you should check it out. So it's cool, again, all these filmmakers that were hand selected, I assume by Del Toro, to come aboard. Like it's very cool to see him reaching for different parts of horror and just filmmakers in general. So The Viewing. Wealthy recluse Lionel Lassiter invites sublime musician Randall Roth, physicist Charlotte G., who studies extraterrestrial life, best-selling author Guy Landon, and purported psychic Targ Reinhard to his home for a special viewing intended to help them all expand their consciousness. Flanked by his physician, Dr. Zara, he encourages them all to take several drugs to place them on the same wavelength. He takes them to a secret room containing an otherworldly meteor. The meteor reacts to their collective presence and they fall into a trance. The meteor cracks open and an oozing entity emerges. The power emanating from the being melts Targ's face and Zara's body, explodes Landon's head, and causes Ji and Roth to flee for their lives. The entity melts down and possesses Lassiter's body, stalking the grounds of his home and killing his guard with electricity. Ji and Roth flee by car, stopping eventually to question what occurred before them. Meanwhile, the entity, now merged with Lassiter into a grisly form, enters the sewers, disrupting the electricity of the city with its uncontrolled aura.
Yeah, so this episode was so much fun, man.
I was going to come into this and say that, like, this is top 2 or 3 episode in the whole series for me.
One of the best. It's so stylish.
It's awesome.
It's so fun. It's so bonkers. Like, I want more stuff like this out of this series if we get more of it. I just want, like, people coming in and going for, like, just going for the fucking fences. Like,
yeah.
It like, not everything about it works perfectly, but I don't care. Like, it's so fun. I want a knob in my car that I just crank and puts on, like, evil synth. And then it has this like light that cranks with it. Like, it just was so cool. And then there were so many funny moments. Like, deadpan humor, but like that, like, you know, where the guy just tells him to stop talking and listen to the soundtrack, please. And like it's this like diegetic sound which is used multiple times, where the cool ass score of the episode is being listened to by the characters in it, and they're like looking around at each other like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
so
it makes
wild.
specific mention of like different types of artistry, different types of like walks of philosophy, and different kinds of science. And I think it was such a cool way to tackle like extraterrestrial life, and then to do it in like a 70s like drug den vibe, and like they're all like just tripping together. And
I noticed the film was like super grainy.
Oh yeah, that's 70s look.
And I don't know if that was being like done in like post, or if they actually like shot it in a different way. I couldn't tell.
It was probably done mostly in post, if I had to guess, but at the same time they may have, grabbed cameras from the 70s and tried
because
to do
like the not only was it grainy, like you could see little like imperfections in it, but also like the lights had this horizontal like bleed, I don't know what the term would be, to the lights all the time, and like it just looked so stylish, and it was reminiscent of how like an older film, almost like not even like the stuff you would see in a theater, but it's like something that like has been passed on to you in a VHS or something.
A B movie, kind of.
Yeah, like it wasn't really shot that well, and it hasn't held up over time.
Yeah, and getting into like film stock and B movies and that kind of stuff is super interesting and this is the kind of stuff I nerd out about with camera technology. And like you can tell that they either did shoot this on film, or they were trying to approach what looked like lower quality film stock that this was shot on, because it does have like it's sort of like murky in ways, and then like you said, it's got that grain, that like degradation in image, and then the lighting is done like very 70s, like a lot of orange and like warm lighting, and and then overall, they talk about the design, the set design is incredible, and they bring it up because this guy's talking about architecture at times. Overall, just what a cool episode, and a way to like talk about all of this.
Peter Weller, man, the reveal of Peter Weller.
Yeah,
RoboCop himself coming out,
awesome.
And like, we saw him in Screamers, like we've covered him before. Like he's such an iconic figure from like 80s like weird 80s films.
Great voice.
His voice is perfect. Such perfectly cast for this role. I just bought it so much, and then
the entire cast is amazing. Eric Andre is hilarious. Steve Agee is amazing. Charlene Yi was probably getting the biggest laughs out of me.
Yeah, she's really good.
The way that she's reacting to everything and taking the drugs and going, it was really good laughs.
So good. I thought there was like a fun moment where they were implying a little bit of attraction between her and the doctor, and she was like, trying to impress her and stuff. I thought that was so cool. She looked super familiar too. I thought maybe she was the doctor. I thought maybe she was the woman in Andor, because we're watching Andor right now.
Andor's great,
but she's not. I recognize her from something else. I forget what it was. I looked into who that is.
She was in Kingsman, was what sort of one of the main places I knew her from.
There was something else too, but yeah. Anyway, they were just all so good, and Steve Agee as this author character, I thought was like kind of hit or miss. He was a little broad, But also I just liked how into the drugs he was. He was just like, oh, a test where I have to do cocaine? All right. Let's talk about that. Like, the drug use was so wild. Like, he's just getting them all to do drugs, and then like the cocaine comes out, space cocaine they call it, because she sprinkles something else on it, and she makes a giant fucking mountain of cocaine for Peter Weller to do, and he's just doing a mountain of cocaine while talking.
He just kept going. I was like, oh, he's gonna pass this plate around, and everybody's gonna make their own lines, and he's like, no, I'm just gonna continue.
This is mine.
It went ridiculous at some, like, it was a massive choice for him to just like suck down this whole thing. It was crazy.
It was so funny. Like, again, like, I think it's this deadpan humor, and then like, Eric Andre had a lot of really funny moments, and especially when he went into the viewing room and he keeps smoking, and Peter Weller there's no smoking in the obelisk room.
Yeah. I also just love, like, there are moments for each actor, like when he got to be like super heady and like talk about like art and start talking about music, and then he's like trying to figure all this stuff out. Like, you get good performances out of everybody in addition to these comedic
would you be caught up in this thing, man? I was thinking, I don't know, but then they brought out the 50-year-old single malt, and he had this whole story about it, and I'm like, all right, he's caught me in his trap.
Yeah. It wasn't until the Coke that I felt like I was in.
I was frustrated to see everybody chugging their single malt. I'm like, I think like one or two people sipped on it, but like everybody else was just down on the whole glass. And I'm like, that is not how you fucking drink.
Yeah, but maybe some of these people weren't familiar. They were, just accustomed to shooting.
Yeah, Peter Weller was the one who did it first, and I was like, come on, man. Like, that, your whole thing is about experiencing the malt, and you're not experiencing it when you chug it. All you're gonna taste is alcohol. All you're gonna taste is burn. Anyway, it's just a little thing.
So there's also the scene where everything's melting down and everybody's faces are melting. Like,
so Peter Weller says, "I have seen things that will make you shit your mind." And
it happens.
Later we see that the melting. It was very like Ark of the Covenant,
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Kind of like Raiders, yeah. But like in different ways. Steve Agee's head explodes, which reminds me of like another famous thing from the 80s, right? I forget what movie it's from, but there's like this fake head that explodes.
I feel like that happens a lot.
Yeah. It was so bonkers, so cool. And then the weird like guy, like I forget what his name was. He's like, he grabs the golden AK and he goes to like, that guy was so strange the whole time. The whole thing is just, it is a drug trip in and of itself, and I think it was designed that way. No smoking in the obelisk chamber, man. I'm gonna remember that for a while. It was so funny.
It was really good. I also love that the two characters who got away were like, it was so cool that they got away in that car together, and I just thought that was like fitting for them to survive, and the other ones were all kind of skeptical. Like, they seemed like the most innocent, I guess I would say.
Yeah. Wow, such a good episode, man. So fun. The final thing being that this thing gets kind of released into a city. Okay, I thought it was an okay ending. The two characters who get away just kind of looking at each other and be like, did that just fucking happen? It was pretty funny.
Did you get like Satan vibes from the tentacles for a while that were sort of pointed out?
I think they were supposed to, because it kind of looks like horns, but I thought it was really cool that it wasn't horns. They were like these weird tentacles. It was like, I don't know, my read of it was this was probably an alien, and this was probably like a meteorite, but he never said that for sure. Yeah. It was just like a weird object. And I like that ambiguity of like, we don't know what that is. Is it a demon? Because I think I turned on the subtitles at one point and went back because I missed something. And it said something about demon growling. Yeah. And I was like, I don't like that the subtitles make that judgment.
I think you can have a demon alien, right? An alien for
I don't know. Demon to me feels biblical. Feels like it's supernatural. But like, this could just be an alien. And everything about it could be exactly the same.
You could say there are plenty of people who think like, who's to say that gods aren't aliens and all these other things,
in the Lovecraftian mythos, it's a blending of all these things, right? So if it's something similar to that, this was cool, man. I really like this episode, especially for like a short film kind of thing. Really, really good. Peter Weller was I think a standout among standouts here for me. It was just like, we start off by meeting him and he's just in this weird room getting shot up with heroin before the entire drug adventure that he goes on. He's just already getting like wild stuff.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I like the idea of getting this group of people together, like from different walks of life, and having conversations. Like, I think that's really fun and interesting.
Yeah. And it was like this, like, the super like elite of the elite. Like, we're gonna all get together. We're all like, leaders in our field, and we're gonna get drugged out, and we're gonna we're gonna try and expand our minds, and then they all just get fucking destroyed by this thing and absorbed. And there's some poetic justice, I guess, going on there because of how like over the top these people are. And it was a good one. I really like this one.
And Peter Weller, just as that character, so like way over the top.
Yeah.
You don't even know how rich you have to be to live this kind of lifestyle. And
I bought him. He's a guy who could pull that off so well.
Yeah.
Too.
And just overall, the production design was incredible. Just the look of this entire episode was so fun and stylized. Like you said, I thought it was really cool.
And I was thinking, like, man, they had to have spent a lot on this set because it was really like cool looking, elaborate. But then I realized that most of the entire movie takes place in this one location, and then there's like a second location. That's most of the movie. So I'm like, okay, they just used their budget wisely because they knew they were gonna have so much. And that little table that rotates to like give you your drinks, like there's so many cool little details. I love the fucking tapes. He'd push a button, you'd see them like popping in and out in another room. He like created like an early iPod, but it's just like all, analog. So
or like CD changer, how you had like the nice stereos like eventually became like CD switchers.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Good one, man. But we got to get to the next episode. Our timer went off a little while ago. Let's do it.
Okay. Episode 8 is called The Murmuring, and it's directed by Jennifer Kent. Jennifer Kent is an Australian actress, writer, and director, best known for her directorial debut, the horror film The Babadook.
I knew I didn't even look it up, and I was thinking about how much this reminded me of The Babadook.
Yeah. Her second film, The Nightingale, premiered at the 75th Venice International Film Festival and was released in the United States in August of 2019. All right, so I'm about to read the summary, but part of the reason why you thought it was familiar is because the main actor is Essie Davis in both The Babadook and
Okay,
here.
so it's the same person. I wasn't even sure about that, but like there were scenes that reminded me of The Babadook.
So like the mother in The Babadook is the person
now that you
who's
say that,
in
I'm
this.
like, oh yeah, that is the same person, isn't it? She looks pretty different. Like she dressed her up differently and stuff.
But interesting stuff about grief too that we can get into. That's kind of both stories.
Yeah,
The Babadook and this. All right, so The Murmuring. Nancy and Edgar Bradley are ornithologists studying bird murmurations and who recently lost their daughter Ava. They go to a remote country home to continue their studies and get away from their grief. Nancy begins seeing ghostly apparitions of a crying boy and a screaming, angry woman. Edgar believes these visions are from the strain of her grief, which Nancy's kept inside all throughout. Nancy learns that the former owner, Claudette, drowned her son and committed suicide. During a fight over these visions, Edgar expresses frustration over Nancy never crying following Ava's death, nor wishing to talk about it, and his hopelessness over their strained relationship. Despondent, he leaves for his research site the next morning. Alone, Nancy is chased by Claudette's screaming ghost and hears her son crying that his mother is angry with him. Comforting him, Nancy encourages him to run into her arms. He does, finally passing on. Nancy then witnesses Claudette committing suicide, realizing that her angry screams were in despair over drowning her son. Claudette's spirit is carried by an enormous bird murmuration, which envelops Nancy, allowing her to finally cry and confront her grief. She contacts a relieved Edgar, saying she is finally ready to talk about Ava.
This might be my favorite episode, and that's saying something about how much I liked the last one.
Of all of them, right? Of the entire show?
Of all of, like, it's so, I thought this one was great. It had some of the best performances, and when I say best, like, I'm not talking about broad performances that are just fun. I'm talking about, like, difficult scenes to sell to me. I mean, Andrew Lincoln, I thought, killed it here. It's just a really smartly written, very different. Like, this episode stands out from the rest. It doesn't have that like broad gore that we were seeing throughout all the episodes. And this is another thing where I'm like, I want more of this. I want stuff to feel very different and unique, and this one does. And it's a quieter horror. It's a creepier horror, and I'm always like, I kind of gravitate towards that. And
I think some of the moments in this were some of the scariest.
Yeah.
Although there were jump scares quite often, but they were like solid, like really tense, scary ones that kind of worked for me.
Yeah. It's like not a cheap jump scare. It's like a. She just knows, this director. Would you say her name was Jennifer Kent?
Jennifer Kent. Yeah.
Yeah, she knows how to make creepy imagery that feels true to life, and like she knows how to use sound.
I mean, even the birds were like kind of freaking me out at times. Like before we knew what their whole purpose was in the episode, I was expecting them to start attacking people or something crazy like that.
Yeah. And then like the figure of the child standing at the foot of the bed, like covered in shadow. Like that, a shadowy figure standing at the foot of your bed will be scary every time you show it to me in a movie. I don't know, like that's like one of the most terrifying things. Like it's reminiscent of night terrors, but also it's just like we've all had the experience of like waking up and seeing something and thinking it's a person because our brains are like trained to see figures. So you, for a moment, you think that like, you know, jacket draped on a chair is actually a person standing in your room, and you have this absolute terror moment of like, oh fuck, someone's in the room with me. And she uses that in both Babadook and here, and you know, I thought brilliantly. And then like that scene with her in the bathtub, and the door opens, and it's just pitch black, and then like something comes flowing out of it. That was the scene that reminded me of like one of my favorites from Babadook. There's like a moment where she looks at like, I think it's like half the room is like in darkness, and the Babadook's like coming. I can't remember exactly how it plays out, but it just visually reminded me very much of it. So I love that that's who it actually was, because I was going to say that this reminded me of the Babadook.
Yeah, and then in a similar this grief monster kind of ghostly haunted house that they're dealing with. I mean, it's a poignant one, right? Like that. It's like one of the most devastating things that can happen. Like a parent outliving the child and having to deal with that grief, and then, you know, feeling those guilty feelings of survivor guilt and thinking like, could you have done more? And then getting this ghostly figure who is kind of having to come to grips with what they did do that actually killed their child.
There's so much like symbolism and thematic resonance here with like we're not told what happened to the child. The child has just died. We get the implication, but we don't know how. So there's like a little bit of a mystery there, but we see the grief. The grief isn't really told to us. We see it play out between these two characters, and it's created this rift between a couple that seems so perfect for one another. And it has sapped all of their joy. And I don't know, like, this is again why I was like giving so much props to Andrew Lincoln, because like I know him best from The Walking Dead, and he's like this badass character, right? He's this cop, and like this is such a different role for him. Like he was transformed into this like nerdy bird, you know, videographer.
Oh, I love that part, by the way. Making him a filmmaker, like sort of a up and coming filmmaker. Like they were kind of asking him,
because it was in the 50s. It was like very early,
and they were like getting grants to use this equipment, and like I just thought it was super cool. All the references to like how he was holding the camera on the tripod. I was like, all right, like he's doing his due diligence. He's probably seen enough camera operators to know.
And like their relationship is so tragic, because like you can tell that they are both genuinely good people, and he's trying his best to break her out of this funk that she's in, but like he can't, and she is unwilling she can't move on at this point, and it's just like two broken people who've been broken by this shared tragedy, and them bouncing off of each other throughout. I don't know, I just found it so compelling.
And to bring it into the birds, right? Like they're ornithologists, and she's so fascinated with these specific birds and the way that they come together and the way that they represent freedom. In like, there's even the word freedom like shown with it, and like ultimately how that freedom and like the way that she's, I don't know if we can say enough. It's more implied, but it seems that all of these events lead to her finally feeling like some sense of freedom from this grief, and that she's willing to move on, and that like there's that same sort of correlation between these birds that are flying freely and who she wants to be, and like sort of be free to live her life even though this tragedy's befallen her family. Like
her listening to the murmurings, and then murmurations, I guess they are, and then like hearing other like something else like behind it, this other whistling they do to each other, and like she hears that, and then having to take off the headphones and realize that it's like actually in the room she's in. So many creepy moments. Now, if I was going to say anything critical about it, it just like there was a little bit of like, I guess I just don't love like physical ghostly manifestations that look just like the person and then like kind of disappear. Like I don't know, like that moment was powerful enough when the kid came running out and disappeared that I was okay with it. But I don't know, like it reminded me a little bit of like those Lovecraft episodes that I didn't love the way the apparitions were dealt with. It just, I don't know. The mother like was clearly like just a person in the scene, it's kind of an odd way to imagine how a ghost would look to me, is that it would just look like a person standing in front of you. But I don't know, it's difficult, man. It's like either that or you make them translucent, and then that looks kind of hokey, so it's just a tough thing to do. But regardless of how it looked, I thought like the story there is really cool one, because it's like she recognizes a lot of herself in this woman who she's reading about, and the grief that she felt over the child that she killed, and helping lay that child to rest, at least in like in terms of like she welcomes the child into the light, and like the child seems to be laid to rest. Like that all helps her realize her own grief and like get to the point where she can actually cry for her child. That's powerful stuff. And like, I like the idea that like she has to kind of externalize in order to come back to herself. And then all of that's caught up in a haunted house. I don't know if those Montague names were given as like a specific reference to the Haunting of Hill House or not, but
it felt very Hill House to me. This episode did.
Yeah, there's like two figures that are named in that party at the start, and it's like Mr. and Mrs. Montague, and I was like, oh, that name is seems important to me.
This episode definitely, I think, has some stuff to owe to that. And honestly, my criticism would be that there were times that it felt, the overall premise felt kind of familiar. Outside of the bird, I think the ornithology angle of it made it unique, but the rest of it felt familiar.
Right, because like ultimately it's about a ghost in a haunted house. So like I get you there. I just thought it was really well executed, you know, and the performances were so good that it really sold me on it. Like Andrew Lincoln dancing.
That the fight that they had too was really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of genuine emotion in this episode that was a different kind of emotion than we had gotten from any other episode in this series.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I really liked about it. It's a different kind of horror, and I want more varieties of horror in an anthology like this. Show all the different facets of horror, including quiet, creepy horror. And that's finally what we got here. I thought this was more of a quiet, creepy horror, and it worked really well. I don't know. I'd have to really think about like where I'd put it, because like obviously I love the body, the autopsy, and I really liked what was it, episode 4, with the beauty cream. I can't remember the name of that episode either. I'm forgetting a lot of names of episodes, but anyway, I that would be interesting to think about, like what actually are my favorites. Those are definitely among them, right? Like episode 7, episode 8 from these 3 for sure. And then from the ones we covered before, yeah, I think episode 3 and 4, which was like the autopsy and
The Outside is what it's called.
The Outside, thank you. That one was great. So those are probably my top 4. And then like figuring out which is the best of those is tough, because they're all so different.
I'll be bold, and I'm going to pick my 3. So my 3 are also, I'm not even going to pick 4. The Autopsy, The Outside, and The Viewing are my 3 favorites, I think. And I'm going to say that my favorite is The Autopsy, followed by The Outside, followed by The Viewing. And then I would put The Murmuring at 4, personally.
Yeah. I think my order would be a little different. I'm going to go, The Autopsy might be number 4 for me. As much as I like that was my favorite story we read. But yeah, I'll put it at 4. And then I think maybe The Outside is 3. That's tough. The Outside was really good.
You might be swaying me, actually. I think I might go Autopsy, The Viewing, and then The Outside. The Outside may have moved to 3. So The Viewing jumped to number 2 for me, and then The Murmuring stays at 4.
Murmuring. Yeah, now that you say it, like, I guess The Viewing was ultimately better. It's a little bit more like,
it's also my kind of things that speak to my sensibilities.
I just really love the quiet, creepy horror of this one, though. Yeah, it's tough, man. I guess I think The Viewing might be my favorite episode of all of them. And then I'll go The Outside, then Murmuring. I'll give The Outside the edge just because of how unique that adaptation.
Yeah, you loved that one when we covered it. Yeah.
And then The Autopsy, number 4. And then honestly, there's a pretty big drop off after that. And a lot of the other episodes would be, if I were to give someone advice who was like on the fence about watching the show, I might tell them to skip some of these other ones. Because I think a few of these will turn people off. And like the Graveyard Rats one, there was some cool special effects, like practical effects in there and stuff, but you don't need to watch that one. Like there's just like the Lovecraft adaptations. I don't know. I've heard some people like them, but like I think if you're a Lovecraft fan, you're probably not gonna love them. And then like just overall, I don't think they're that great.
I would probably tell people to watch the ones that we've designated, those 4. I would tell them to watch those first, and then if they really like it, go search the rest of them. Because
I think those are the best 4. We're in agreement there. Those are the 4 that are absolutely worth watching. So if you're listening to this and you haven't watched it yet, those 4 episodes are the ones to check out. But yeah, until next time,
keep adapting.